I'm going to Earth! Hey, everyone!
Go, go! Live your life!
In this video, we will dive into the movie Lilo and Stitch. We will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reaction. So, let's get started. The film opens in outer space, where a meeting of galactic council is held. The Grand Council for Men has brought mad scientist Jumba Jogia into custody for the creation of numerous dangerous experiments. But the latest one, Experiment 626, have proven to be the biggest threat to the galaxy. Jumba brags about how 626 is unstable and powerful. But after seeing that 626 is simply a naughty and destructive creature, she has bought him and Jumba imprisoned. After being held captive, 621 manages to quickly break free and hop on a cruiser to escape into space. The other aliens track 626 trajectory and see he is heading toward Earth. The Grand Councilwoman nearly allows the aliens to destroy the planet until one of the Earth experts, Bleakley Billy, comes out and tells them how to do so. As they are working on rebuilding the mosquito population, the Grand Councilwoman orders Jumba to go to Earth to retract 626 with Bleakley supervision. In Hawaii, Lilo Palke feeds a sandwich to purge the fish before running to her hula class. Her older sister Nanny is her guardian and struggle to maintain a stable job to support them both. Lilo is made fun of by the other girls in her class, including Myrtle Emmons. Nanny fails to show up for Lilo's recital. Myrtle pushes Lilo on stage, so Lilo pushes her off it and gets herself kicked out of the class. Back at home, Lilo locks Nanny out of the house out of spite of for missing the recital. Making matters more complicated is the arrival of social worker Mrs. Keiko. Nanny tries to get Lilo to pretend like everything is going well, but Mrs. Keiko can tell that they are having a hard time keeping things together. She has Nanny comes up with some goal to improve things, but after Mrs. Keiko leaves, Nanny and Lilo have a fight outside. Nanny meets with her neighbor, who is like a grandmother figure to her and Lilo. She knows of his sister's problems and encourages Nanny to pursue on education in marine biology like she has always wanted. But Nanny feels she needs to be there for Lilo. Tutu's grandson, a surfer named David Kavanagh, has a crush on Nanny but is awkward around her. Later that night, Nanny makes Lilo something to eat and they reconcile. Lilo looks up at the sky and sees what she thinks is a shooting star, but it's actually just 626 shipcrafts. Lilo makes a wish to have a real friend. Jumba and Priki arrive in Hawaii and adopt human disguise space of two men they run into. They check into the hotel to hide out, where Jumba messes with a portal gun and briefly exposes himself and Bleakley to a local G-bag big guy who always drops his icy treat. They then find out about a mysterious creature being taken to the shelter. The next day, Tutu goes to take Lilo to the animal shelter to visit the dogs as she enjoys doing. There she finds 626, who has hidden his alias feature to look closer to a regular four-legged animal like the dogs he has encountered. He breaks out of his cage and is seen by Jumba and Bleakley. He dogs dead, tranquilizer, darts and overhears from saying they will not harm other human. 626 sees Lilo and pretend to be a dog to protect himself. She quickly takes a liking to him and names him Stitch. Even Tutu and the shelter employees think Stitch is ugly. Nanny is also known to pleased when she finds out about Stitch. CIA agent Cobra Bubbles and his fellow agents come upon the crash site of Stitch's ship. Cobra believes there is something alien nearby, and his suspicions are confirmed when he gets a notification about Lilo adopting Stitch from the animal shelter. Lilo tries to show off Stitch to Myrtle and her equally mean friends, but they are unimpressed as Stitch responds by taking the girl's car and hot-wiring it so he and Lilo can drive off. When Stitch thinks he is fine on escape, he is upset to learn that the island is surrounded by water, making it hard for him to get away since his molecular density increases with water. Later, Nanny takes Lilo and Stitch to her law job where David also works. The two end up horsing around the place, but at night, while David is performing with fire dancers, Stitch grabs two fire batons and accidentally starts a fire. Nanny's boss ends up firing her. When they get home, Nanny is all ready to bring Stitch back to the shelter. Auntie Lilo reminds her of ʻOhana and their parents' motto. ʻOhana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind for or forgotten. They are overheard from outside by Cobra, Upstairs, Lilo shows Stitch a photo album of her family, including hers and Nanny's late parents. In the morning, Nanny is ready to take Lilo and Stitch with her to go to job hunting. But here visit with his wife Mrs. Keiko and Cobra, as he is also the head of the social worker department. During the job hunt, Stitch continues to cause problems that make it difficult for the employer to want to hire Nanny. When she is feeling let down, David suggests to her that she gives self lessons since she is good at it. Nanny takes his advice and starts to do lessons on the beach, and even Stitch becomes interested in surfing along with Lilo and Nanny. Unfortunately, Jumba and Plicky show up on a jet ski. Lilo and Stitch get knocked into the water. A panicked Stitch hops onto Lilo, injured violently, pushing her underwater. Nanny and David rescue Lilo, but Stitch feels bad over what happened. At the hospital, Mrs. Keiko tells Nanny that the state can pay for her and Lilo's insurance if she gives up guardianship. Nanny reluctantly agrees. After the latest thriller, the Grand Councilwoman contacts Jumba and Plicky to let them know that she is relieving them of their duties and is ordering Plicky to bring Jumba back so he can be taken into custody. Jumba decided to take matters into his own hands and sends Plicky through a portal into the hotel's storage closet so that he can get Stitch back himself. At night, Nanny brings Lilo a pizza and talks to her about some changes that are going to happen. Stitch overhears and feels he is responsible for picking up the star sister's ʻOhana, so he walks himself back to the animals' shelter. The following morning, Mrs. Keiko and Cobra arrive for Lilo, but they discover that she is not in her room. She has gone back to the shelter to look for Stitch, but unfortunately, Jumba has found them there as well. He tries to turn Lilo against Stitch by telling her that he only picked her as a human shield. Stitch grabs the portal gun from Jumba and stabs him in a loop, leaving them room to escape. Jumba reverts to his larger alien form to stop falling. He follows the duo back to the house and begins causing destruction in his attempt to get Stitch. Eventually, he manages to capture Stitch and bring him on board his ship, but Lilo follows them brought the portal. Nanny returns to see smoke coming from their house and joins Blakely, David, Toto, and Cobra in going to save Lilo. On board the ship, Jumba tells Stitch the plans to remove his capacity for love and turn him into the more powerful and violent experiment 627. Lilo snakes around yet manages to free Stitch, who breaks free his clay chains and fights Jumba again. Lilo opens the back door, which sucks Jumba out into the ocean. The ship crashes into the water, and Nanny jumps into the swim and saves her sister. Lilo and Stitch sinks underwater, but she is unable to pull him up since he has gotten heavier due to his increased density. Stitch lets go for her hand so he will not sink with him. David gets Lilo out, but Nanny dives back up for Stitch. He is unconscious and David uses defibrillator to revive him, but it does not work. Lilo then suggests using car batteries to do the trick, and after a while Stitch regains consciousness. The Grand Councilwoman arrives on Earth. She has Jumba pulled out of the water and arrested before attempting to bring Stitch into custody. He speaks to her and asks to say goodbye to his ʻOhana, while the Grand Councilwoman fears that Stitch expired to the public could create a catastrophe. Cobra agrees to keep it a secret. The Grand Councilwoman then agrees to allow Stitch to serve out the exile on Earth, so he can stay with Lilo. Blakely also agrees to stay behind to keep an eye on Stitch. Everyone return home and are met by Mrs. Keiko. She tells Nanny that she can allow Lilo to be fostered by Toto and David, allowing her to go to the college. While she is upset about leaving Lilo behind, her sister encourages her to live for herself. During the credits, everyone works together to rebuild the Blakey's house. Later, Lilo is talking to Nanny via webcam, but Nanny surprises Lilo by using Jomba's portal gun to visit her. Cobra, who has also stayed to keep an on Lilo, almost catches them messing around, while a sister and Stitch are linked together in bed, ready to go to sleep. Made alien scientist Jomba Jokila creates Experiment 626, a dangerous and indestructible little monster that is seen as a threat to the galaxy. 626 escapes from custody and makes his way to Earth, where he is adopted by a lonely Hawaiian girl named Lilo. She names him Stitch and takes him as dog. The Grand Councilwoman orders Jumba to go to Earth, along with an expert named Blakely, to capture Stitch. Stitch causes problems at home between Lilo and her older sister Nanny, who is struggling to maintain guardianship of Lilo after he died of the parents. Stitch is also pursued by CIA agent Cobra Bubbles, who also work with his sisters and social worker, Mrs. Kako, to see if Nanny is fit for guardianship. After nearly causing Lilo to drown, Stitch feels bad over nearly breaking up the sisters' ʻOhana. So he returned to the shelter where Lilo found him. She runs away to find him, and they are found by Jumba, who has decided to work alone with when the Grand Councilwoman tries to have him brought back into custody. Jumba takes Stitch, but Lilo snakes onboard in his ship to save him. This ejects Jumba from the ship, and it crashes into the ocean. Nanny and her boyfriend David rescue Lilo and Stitch, but the Grand Councilwoman arrives to arrest Jumba and Stitch. When she sees this, Stitch has changed for the good and come to care for his new ʻOhana. The Grand Councilwoman agrees to let Stitch serve out his exile on Earth, while Blakely and Cobra keep an eye on him and work to protect their secret. Nanny goes off to the college and leaves Lilo and Stitch in the care of David and his grandmother. She occasionally visits her sister by using Jumba's portal gun. Nanny makes a big decision in the live-action Lilo and Stitch remake that she did not make in the original film, and I am incredibly upset by it. Nanny was one of the characters that the live-action Lilo and Stitch remake attempt to expand on the most visible filmmakers wanting the remake to be a more personal story about Lilo and Nanny's relationship as a sister. I have not been a fan of any of the live-action Disney's remake, and this had to with Lilo and Stitch. Overall, I think that the 2025 remakes fundamentally misunderstood the themes and emotions of the original movie, as can be seen with many of the changes. Making Jumba and the main villain proves that the movie does not understand how key his redemption was to be familiar theme of the original. The same can be said for Lilo's fascinations with mainland tourists, something that is also absent from the remake. Of all these changes, however, the ones surrounding Nanny are the most shocking. Lilo and Stitch live-action remake attempt to expand on Nanny's backstory, showing who she was before with parents' death. In the remake, Nanny was a prolific surfer who seemed to have a bright career ahead of her. She also excelled in the school and had dramas of leaving Hawaii to go to school for marine biology. Once her parents died, however, Nanny puts these dramas aside to take care of Lilo, while Nanny is in the same position in politics on Lilo and Stitch. The remake attempts to highlight how much she gave up for her sister. Throughout the remake, Nanny's neighbor Tutu and several other characters encourage her to pursue her drama. She is struggling to balance her life as an individual with her care for Lilo, getting her in trouble with Child Protective Services. At the end of the remake, the social workers say that Nanny needs to find a new home for Lilo. Nanny makes a shocking decision to agree, making Lilo live with Tutu. Nanny then leaves Lilo to go to the college, following her dreams. While this is painted as a feel-good moment, it is shockingly out of character. of Nanny based on the original film. Nanny giving Lilo up to. Some viewers have surmised that higher ups behind the scene may have requested that the gag be removed from the Lilo and Stitch reboot due to the humor potentially being viewed as outdated, given how Plicky mainly disguised himself as a woman. Others have hypothesized that his decision was more rooted in a move to appease conversations pundit who could potentially spark discourse about Blakely gender non-conforming disguise. Regardless, it is likely few will be satisfied by the movie's ultimately decision. Disney's live-action remake had reached a critical point, as a lackluster box office performance and critical reception of Snow White has led to questions about the future of live-action remake that are in development. As such, there are high expectations of how Lilo and Stitch will perform at the box office to determine how the studio will move forward. With this, it is clear that Camp's response is an attempt to reach out to the audiences who may be skeptical of whether the movie can live up to the original movie's legacy. If you are hoping for the same feel, good ending in the Lilo and Stitch live-action remake, you may want to be aware of one big spoiler that might give you pause. The ending of the new Lilo and Stitch remake is very different from the 2022 animated movie. So much so that some critics have even noted that this new ending fundamentally changes the meaning of the movie. Across the internet, various critics and fans have voiced their frustration that the new live-action version of Lilo and Stitch different ending is not only a strange change from the 2002 classic but also a heartbreaking one. We warned big spoiler incoming. At the end of the new Lilo and Stitch, the titular young girl Lilo, Maia Kealoha, does now remain with her older sister Nanny as her parental guardian. Instead, Nanny chooses to let the state decide Lilo's fate and goes off to college. If this sounds a bit extreme, the movie's goal with this ending is to make it seem like everybody gets what they want. Nanny gets to pursue her dream. Lilo goes to live with a nice neighbor, and things are generally warm and fuzzy. But as fans and critics alike have pointed out, this also inverts the ending of the original film. Nanny giving Lilo up to Stitch is shocking deviation from the 2002. Writes Robert Pittman for Screen Rant. Nanny's willingness to give up Lilo in the remake is massive change of character, as she never would have done this in the animated film. Our own Vulture reporter Betty Squire pointed out that many objections from fans on social media are connected to the idea that the movie attempts to paint the government involvement in the family choices as positive. Some even call the film propaganda for social services. Squires points out, citing various social media reactions. Everyone will of course have their own take, but one thing is for sure. The 2025 Lilo and Stitch is not just different because its live action and certain characters are missing. It's different because the movie has an entirely different feeling about how the story is supposed to end. This article contains spoiler for Disney's Lilo and Stitch 2025. Disney's Lilo Stitch live-action adaptation was released this past weekend. It won the Memorial Day box office with an estimated $183 million, the highest record for that weekend. But there has been an ongoing discourse about the film's ending and whether it dishonored the original 2002 animated version. The original film ended with Nanny, Lilo and Stitch embracing their newfound family and living happily together. It's a straightforward ending for the movie, but that's not how the real world works. The live adaptations understand that you need a real job to survive, especially with Hawaii having the highest cost of living. In the new film, Lilo, Kevin and Nanny become orphans after their parents passed in the car accident. Nanny instantly becomes a mother and a sister. She gave up a university scholarship on the mainland to care for Lilo as it was her Kealoha or responsibilities. As Lilo newfound guardian, yet Nanny is barely an adult, struggling no balance working full time, taking care of the bills and insurance, and raising a feisty 6-year-old. Now she is dealing with an alien dog, tearing up the home and any potential work opportunities. It's a lot for anybody in that situation. Things go wrong for Nanny, and she is basically forced to give Lilo up to the state because it was only a matter of time before the government looked Lilo. History of the government taking away indigenous families cannot be ignored. Lilo and Stitch screenwriters Grace Bright and Mike Van Weiss took creative liberty in adding the character Artuto Amy Hill. Lilo and Stitch is a long-term neighbor and family friend. To ensure that did not happen, in Hawaiian culture, ʻOhana doesn't have to mean just blood family, but also include community and found family. Director Dean Fleischer Camp told that Tutu has been there for them for many years, which brought authenticity to the story because the community of Hawaii would be there to support them. While Nanny had planned to relieve her guardianship of Lilo to the state, at the behest of the social worker, Mrs. Kako, Tutu offers to foster adopt Lilo under her care. Nanny is in disbelief, believing she will be able to raise Lilo with help. She was not thinking about returning to school or anything else. It is not until Tutu and Lilo pushes her to return to pursue a higher education, with Lilo new under the care of family friend. Nanny had the opportunity to use her economy, smart brain, and get her degree. It took a lot of convincing from the family for Nanny to finally accept. While many feel it's disrespecting ʻOhana and the idea that nobody gets left behind or forgotten, Lilo is not getting left behind or forgotten. She has her family with her, including Stitch, Toto, and a newfound family in Cobra Bubbles and Plicky. Nanny is only a portal blast away from seeing her little sister and plans on returning to be reunited physically as a family. The ending is actually paying a service to the phrase, as Nanny herself does not get left behind in her life and her dreams. Nanny is a person, and those inspirations should not be forgotten or abandoned before Lilo became her responsibility. Nanny had dreams for studying marine biology at the University of California, San Diego, which she got into with her full ride before her parents died. She used to serve with friends and her potential boyfriend, David. She gave it all up to be sister keeper. People often forget about the caretaker and the burnout that they suffer, as well as the sacrifices they make. The film also makes it a point that Nanny never made Lilo feel small about it either. She never resonated Lilo or purposely made Lilo feels like a burden they would scream at each other, like sibling Joe, but make up in the end with Nanny telling Lilo that she loves her. Nanny was an excellent sister and doing the best she could as an unexpected mother. Nanny is not the villain in this story and should not be made to be one because she is given a chance to live her dream. As for Stitch, he was the needle and thread in bringing the community together for both Lilo and Nanny. If there was no Stitch, Lilo would have remained a lonely girl, and Nanny silently suffering from her massive responsibilities with Stitch's arrival. He brought joy to Lilo and vice versa, but became the catalyst of having the community come together to help Lilo and Nanny from their predicament. Nanny realizes she does and finally accepts it. Disney's live-action Lilo and Stitch may not be able childhood nostalgic ending that we remember, but it's a realistic mainstay alien portrayal of what ʻOhana really means. Viewers had something of a love-hate relationship with Disney's slate of live-action remake, which are often criticized for failing to live up to the original animated film, yet something proving very popular at the box office. The original Lilo and Stitch was a modest success, grossing to $73 million worldwide, but fans look back on the film fondly. It's beautifully animated, boasts its unique characters design, a good sense of humor, and depicts Hawaii as a lush, colorful paradise, while the new Lilo and Stitch has already overtaken the original film at the box office. Commentators have pointed out that the live-action remake does not capture the beauty and heart of the animated film. Plus, a significant change made to the ending of the film has sparked backlash and controversy on social media. Lilo and Stitch, despite Lilo and her sister Nanny, is in difficult but very loving relationship. The two are orphaned, and Nanny is tasked with taking care of her little sister. Nanny is the only one who understands Lilo's eccentricity, but Nanny is overset and struggles to care for her little sister, resulting in the state threatening to take Lilo away from Nanny. Of course, the sisters' life forces faces greater disruptions when the alien Stitch enters their life disguised as a dog, sabotaging Nanny's desperate attempt to get her life in order. The story emphasizes the importance of ʻOhana, meaning family that bind beyond a traditional blood ties. The original animated film grants Lilo family a happy ever after, ending with Nanny, Lilo and Stitch finding peace together, blocked by a new support system of aliens and humans. The live-action remake, however, has a different interpretation of ʻOhana. In the live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch, Nanny, Sydney, and Lilo are in the exact same situation, but the film ends with the state taking Lilo away from her big sister. Fans of the original film were quite shocked to see the change. For context, this change is presented as an unambitiously happy ending for Nanny, as a new character is introduced due to Amy, grandmotherly neighbor who adopts Lilo. This ensures that Nanny can still see Lilo regularly and remain close, but also gives her the freedom to leave for college in California to study marine biology. However, fans pointed out that there was something dark about Nanny's future career being placed above her care for Lilo, a strangely cold ending with a glossy girl boss spin. Given that the original film and the remake very much emphasizes the importance of keeping families together with the phrase "no one gets left behind," this struck many viewers as a cold attempt at a happy ending. Indeed, given the terrible history of indigenous children being torn away from their family, many pointed out that the creative choices came across as wildly incentive. The outcry was so strong, it even inspired satirical fan art. The live-action Lilo and Stitch makes some interesting changes to the source material that deepen the moral of the story and tweaks the story going forward. Based on the 2002 film of the same name, Lilo and Stitch focuses on the titular pair, a young girl and the alien she adopts as her dog. The two troublemakers develop a tight bond while contending with both the social services that might separate Lilo from her sister, Nanny, as well as the alien who seek to recapture Stitch and bring him back to space. Lilo and Stitch characters are largely pulled from the original film, although there are some clever additions and important character tweaks that important the story. This includes a very important changes to the overall plot, with one of the new characters opening up an entirely different kind of ending. Here is how 2025 Lilo and Stitch remake differ from the animated classic and how it sets up a national sequel storyline. Lilo and Stitch happy ending split up the new sister but ensure they remain a major part of each other's lives, thanks to the help of some characters original to this version of the story. Lilo and Stitch leans more heavily into the struggles Nanny faces as a guardian to her 6-year-old sister, including sacrificing a full scholarship to college to follow her passion in marine biology. The social worker Mrs. Kako is portrayed as an incredibly sympathetic and kind woman, doing her best to ease Nanny into the realization that she is not prepared to be the Lilo primarily caregiver. However, that does not mean they have to split apart. Tuto is a new important supporting character, established early as a neighbor to the Plakai family and the grandmother to Nanny's love interest, David. She offers support and does her best to also watch over Lilo. By the end of the film, Tuto successfully been able to volunteer as a foster home for Lilo. After rebuilding Lilo and Nanny's home, Nanny is even able to visit easily thanks to stolen alien teleporter. After they are apart, Lilo and Stitch's main family is closer than ever by the film's end. Jumba is a major character in both versions of Lilo and Stitch, a brilliant but dangerous scientist who recreated Stitch. In both films, he is sent to the Earth to recover the specimen. In the original animated film and the subsequent spin-off material, Jumba adjusted to Earth and eventually became a part of the extended family. However, Jumba never gets that redemption arc in the live-action film and is instead positioned as the movie's primary antagonist. He never grows to appreciate art or Bleakley and is far more vindictive in his attempt to apprehend Stitch. This is likely the main reason the villain of the original film, Cantu, was cut from the new Lilo and Stitch, with Jumba never turning into a good guy. There was no need for a second massive alien villain. Jumba makes for an interesting antagonist, especially when it's revealed that he hates the emotional attachment that Stitch he made with Lilo. By positioning the character to be more of a villain, Lilo and Stitch is able to reinforce the theme of the film by highlighting how it's the emotion that count, not the possessions and superficial element of family. Structurally, the ending to both versions of Lilo and Stitch are largely similar. In both versions, Stitch and the older humans are confronted by the Grand Councilwoman who allow Stitch exile to be commuted to Earth. However, many minor details are different, most notably the presence of Tutu giving Lilo a more stable home while Nanny pursues her college ambition. The film it clear that family does not get left behind also need to be applied to self-care, with Tutu and Mrs. Coco reminding Nanny that she needs to also focus on herself. Bleakley remains a part of Lilo and Stitch found family, retaining his role in the original movie. Another big change is Agent Bubble, who is portrayed as a more grounded CIA character in the live-action movie. The hacking agent was revealed to have already contacted aliens off-screen is in the animated film, but his decision to help save Lilo instead of reporting the aliens is a big moment for the characters and sets him up to also become a permanent part of the extended family unit. These cute additions add a found family layer to the themes of the original movie. Lilo and Stitch ends on a fairly definitive note, with the arc of Lilo, Stitch and Nanny all resolved. However, the movie's decision to keep Jumba a villain could easily be used as means of adapting another entry in the franchise for a sequel. After having captured Stitch, Jumba comments that he will continue his experiment and attempt to craft a version of the alien who is incapable of emotions connections in the process. Jumba also goes through a quick display on the computer of his other experiments, confirming that Stitch was far from his first creation. A sequel to Lilo and Stitch could explore this concept more thoroughly, even bringing back Jumba as the architect of this plan in a bid of overwhelm Stitch the movie and the subsequent Lilo and Stitch. The series focused on many of these other experiments, also eventually following after Stitch and crashing on Hawaii. A sequel to Lilo and Stitch could explore this concept more thorough, even bringing back Jumba as the architect of this plan in a bid to overwhelm Stitch. This could be a natural way to expand the original story and introduce Stitch's extended supporting characters for new fans. The moral of Lilo and Stitch is similar to the original film, with a focus on the redemption and love that can be found through family, both biological and foster. Both movies make the concept that no one that gets left behind is paramount to bring a part of a family, building to their largely similar endings. However, the live-action movie also brings in some refreshing modern shades to that moral. Just because Lilo and Nanny don't live together and Nanny goes to college does not mean they are not family. It's important that Nanny gets a greater focus in this new film, which puts more emphasis on her own relative, youth, and her still ambitious. Being her own woman does not make her any less of a guardian and a sister to Lilo, a feeling she ends up extending to Stitch by the end of the film. The true meaning of Lilo and Stitch expands the emotional scale of the original film and gives it some very compelling new layer. Disney live-action remakes have often sparked controversy, whether due to the drastic creative changes or questionable casting decisions. Surprisingly, Lilo and Stitch 2025 managed to sidestep most of this noise and for good reason. It respects the beloved 2002 original, maintaining its core themes and characters' identities while making subtle but meaningful updates that enhance the story even further. Set in modern day Hawaii, the film follows Lilo, an imaginative and misunderstood young girl dealing with grave social alienation and the challenge of living under the care of her older sister Nanny. After the loss of their parents, when a mysterious alien fugitive, voiced by Chris Sander, crash lands on Earth and is mistaken for a dog, Lilo adopts him and names him Stitch. Their unlikely bond becomes the heart of a story that explores the meaning of family, loss, and acceptance. What sets this remake apart from many of Disney's previous attempts in its respectful fidelity to the source material? The filmmakers resist the temptations to modernize or reconcile their characters in ways that feel forced. Instead, they double down on authenticity, particularly in the film's culture setting and casting choice. The two leads, Kealoha and Sydney Elizabeth, are perfectly cast, capturing the essence of their animated counterparts while adding a grounded emotional realism to their performances. The film's most noticeable improvements come in its emotional beats. While the original was already touching, this remake managed to dig deeper. Certain key scenes, especially the A scenes, are beautiful and emotionally realizes and likely to resonate strongly with viewers. There is more natural flow to the family dynamics, and the narrative feels more cohesive and believable in its live action form, especially in the film's climatic moments. Plus, a live action Stitch is even more adorable this time around. That said, long term for fans, many may still lean toward the animated version for nostalgia alone. But 2025 adaptations proves that remakes don't need to reinvent everything. Sometimes honoring what worked and reunifying the rest is more than enough justification for a remake such as Lilo and Stitch to exist. I was 8 years old when the original Lilo and Stitch was released. I remember seeing it with my mom in theaters back in the summer of 2002. Back then, I never thought a remake of one of my childhood movies would even be possible. I am sure I may have imagined how a live action version would come about. Now, with Disney's digging deep down in their barrel of beloved animated classics, and with so many films in their roster having been remade, I guess one of their more modern films was next. But was a remake of Lilo and Stitch truly necessary? Or is the studio trying desperately to cash in on same of that sweet nostalgia? Judging by the box office results and how many millennial parents are taking their kids to the theater, I would say the latter. I personally believe that it is a bright sun to take on Lilo and Stitch since the original feels timeless, but I am aware of how the studio's machine works when theaters are still trying to make it out post COVID, and with Disney's latest track record of box office bumps. It makes sense to go straight to the heart of that makes our sense, triangulate our joy. I am no different since I too have caught the nostalgia bug due to having a fondness for the original film and have kids of my own that I can share the movie going experience with thought. There is no denying that nothing beats having to go watch the original film for the first time in theater, which I feel that kids today are missing. That seems to be the case with every live-action remake of a Disney's film that comes out, where kids that grow up with the original are now adults and wanting to recapture their childhood experiences on a bigger screen either for pure nostalgia or because they help many children. Films like 2017 Beauty and the Beast, 2019 The Lion King and the Aladdin, which came out the same year, have achieved major success with their billion-dollar grosses. Now, I am not saying that all the live-action remakes are at the same success. In fact, there have been some duds in the recent year. Recent outings like 2019, Dumbo, or Dear. I say this is year Snow White have failed to capture attention or at least faced scrutiny for soiling the legacy of the studio's brand. I can't even say that the ones that were successful were every all improvements year despite being nostalgic cash cows. I can understand that the ones I mentioned were mainly successful due to how beloved the original films were. It would make sense for Disney to make Lilo and Stitch, not just because it is a part of the Disney's canon. There are a lot of people who are fond of the original film, me included. But I believe that remaking a movie like Lilo and Stitch is risky, because not only it is still fresh in people's mind, despite being over 20 years old, there are a lot of things that fans want to see and certain changes as to not make it too familiar. The story is the same: an alien crash landing in Hawaii, where it befriends a little girl while trying to avoid capture and eventually learning the meaning of ʻOhana. If you were expecting a beat for beat remake of the original film, you are either going to be extremely disappointed or believed that it doesn't follow the same formula. I am somewhere on a mid-side. First of all, the aliens' designs are as close to the original without feelings too uncanny, especially Stitch. It also has Seth Chris Sanders, who directed the 2002 films, return to voice him again. The beginning is nearly identical to the opening of the original where mad scientist Jumba Zack is held on trial by the Grand Councilwoman Vice ʻOhana or conducting a series of dangerous experiments. His latest being Experiment 626 or Stitch as we later know him. It is familiar enough. Thought it is clear that something is missing, and the changes that allow reflect that as the movie goes on. I give credit to this remake for at least trying to be fun, but Stitch getting into all sorts of mischief while on not even interrupting a wedding banquet that seems lifted straight from the 2015 kids movie catalog, but it is hard to ignore how different it all feels. The major complaints I have heard from people who saw 2025's Lilo and Stitch are the changes that occur, and I honestly can see how problematic they can feel. I personally did not mind some of them. I think the biggest problem with 2025 Lilo and Stitch is not what is changed but at what caused a different effect. The heart of Lilo and Stitch did not just came from a girl befriending an alien who disguised himself as a dog, but in the sisters' dynamic between Lilo and Nanny, as well as the family drama they went through. While it is there in motion, the impact just does not feel as strong as Lilo's sister. Nanny Sydney's Agudong is portrayed as more of an overworked, exhausted older sibling with somewhat of an annoyance over her little sister's antics than someone who loves and cares for her sister in moments that do not feel quite as earned. Social services is still a major plot point in this remake. True, instead of Cobra Bibbles being a social worker, we get an appearance from the original voices of Nanny herself. Care as a woman named Mrs. Kako, with Bubbles being reduced to a CIA agent whose motive is to track Stitch and suspect him of alien activity. Not a burdensome change, but still a change. Nonetheless, if there is a one change that bothered me the most, it would be the characters of Jumba and Pleakley. Billy, while their appearance are also rendered well, and I like the idea of them taking on human forms as a way to make it a work in live action. They feel underutilized, gone is the comical banter and the chemistry that made these two aliens likable. Instead, we get Galifianakis and Mangeson is awkward performances. When they make this idea to do more with Ball Chamba and Blakely, the result are a disappointment, especially with their characters' traits that feel more like a betrayal. David is also in the movie, but he does not have much to do with their other just sided lines that original David said. What really does work, however, is the dynamic between Lilo and Stitch. Their scenes are what have the most fun and heart, especially since their friendship is the main focus. Much like kids who grew up with the original Lilo and Stitch loved and adored it. Kids who see the remake will probably like this one as well. All this movie made me do is want to revisit the original. As someone who grew up quoting Stitch's every chaotic word and trying to hula like Lilo in front of the TV, I was both nervous and excited to watch the live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch. Disney has been hit or miss with their live-action reimaginings, so my expectations were cautiously optimistic. But after seeing the film with my 5-year-old daughter, who was absolutely glued to the screen, I am happy to say this version struck the right balance of nostalgia and reinvention. For those unfamiliar with the original, Lilo and Stitch follows a lonely Hawaiian girl named Lilo and her adopted sister Nanny, who unexpectedly adopt a strange dog from the local shelter. The dog turns out to be Stitch, an alien's experiment designed for destruction. The story is all about family, healing, and how even the most chaotic beginnings can find love and belonging. In the 2025 version, the plot mostly sticks to the original blueprint, but with a few interesting changes that actually improve some of the characters, motivations, and scene transition. Without spoiling anything, a few backstory elements are fleshed out to make Lilo's action and feeling more understandable. Watching it as an adult, I appreciated those additions. They gave the emotional beats a bit more weight. Even my daughter noticed a few new details and kept whispering to me that it did happen in the cartoon, which was actually a fun way to experience the film again through her eyes. Let's be real, everyone watches Lilo and Stitch for one reason: Stitch. He is still the wild, blue, mischievous alien we know and love. The CGI work on Stitch is the previous version as fantastic. He is expressive, fluid, and perfectly balanced. His destructive side with those wide-eyed, puppy-like moments that make you say, ah. One of the standout aspects of the film is the cast. Sydney Elsbert and do a beautiful job portraying Nanny and Lilo, bringing depth and warmth to the relationship. Lilo is a little more grounded than the animated version, but still quickly and lovable. There is quite a trend in the Androng portrayal of Nanny, who balances being a young audience and a fiercely protective sister. One thing I always loved about the original film was its deep respect for Hawaiian culture, and this remake does a good job continuing that. The scenery is beautiful with lush sweeping shots of the island that made me want to book a trip to Hawaii as ASAP. The Kealoha scenes are vibrant and respectful, and the soundtrack incorporates just the right amount of island rhythm and tradition song to give it that authentic flavor. I think what hit me hardest was realizing that Lilo and Stitch has officially become a generational film. I first watched it my late teens year as it's replaced over and over on the blockbuster screen. Now here I was in a theater next to my daughter, watching her experience it for the first time, eyes wide giggling at Stitch gasping when Lilo gets taken. Absolutely, this movie is not just a copy-paste remake. It brings something new to the table while honoring what made the original so special. The visual are charming, the cast is excellent, and while some changes may raise own eyebrow among the hard fans, they ultimately make the story feel more complete. It's not perfect. There are moments where you miss the energetic chores for the animation version, but it's delightful. Emotionally rich film that is entertained both old fans and new ones alike. They take your kids, check your inner child, and maybe bring some issue just in case. For Disney, it was a stop away from its usual style. It took a sci-fi alien story and transported it to modern Hawaii, where it explored the everyday struggle of the people who lived there. With hand-drawn to the animation in the native style of Chris Sanders, who last year directed the Oscar-nominated film, The Award Robot, and had a fresh look that was new for the studio, including round faces and larger bodies. It was also one of the first mainstream films to platform and celebrate Hawaiian culture, putting locals at the forefront rather than using the arc as a cheap backdrop. And critically, it subtle criticized in ways in which mass tourism has affected native Hawaiians. A live-action remake set in Overton was a chance to take the elements that made the original so groundbreaking and add layer of modernity to them. Maybe Lilo and Nanny are surrounded by airburns now, or perhaps Stitch can attempt his dreams of destroying a large city, given how built up modern could plainly add a dog rendition of Chapel's own song. It's the latest release to follow the apparent new recipe for a modern kids movie. Some save everything that could possibly offend anyone. Replace a personalized hand-drawn animation with expensive photorealistic CGI, add a narrated slapstick and a Bruno Mars song, and you have got yourself a hit. Both films follow the same initial plot. Nanny has been her sister's Lilo guardian since their parents died, but is struggling with the responsibility. Repeated visit from a social worker are not going well, and separation seems imminent. Meanwhile, far from Art Experiment 626, who was made in a lab by Jomba, the mad scientist evil genius, has escaped. He soon lands on the scientist's Hawaiian island, and Jumba is tasked with recapturing his monster. I remember going to see Lilo and Stitch when it was first released in theater, quite vividly. In fact, I was 11-year-old. It was summer break, June 2002, just out of Atlanta, Georgia, and likely hot as hits. My mom, my brother, and I joined up with one of my friends, her younger siblings, and their mom to go watch the newest animated Disney joint at the local theater. Although I was not especially thrilled, as this one wasn't about princess and therefore not relevant to my interest. But I recall enjoying the film quite a bit more than I anticipated. I also remember being surprised by Like Mike, which you may recall in this movie staring a lapidly bow as a dawn on his luck kid, who inherits magic basketball talents after finding an old pair of Michael's Jordan sneakers. My friend's mom suck is all into the arboretum, screening that one immediately after Lilo and Stitch ended, which is possibly the most criminal act I have ever engaged in my life. None of that really mattered, except to add in my assertion that despite Spose's intangible, nostalgic connection to the original movie, my comes with its new live-action remake, the latest in Disney's seemingly never-ending cycle of nostalgic bait media, are rooted in reasons other than the mere fact that Chris Pratt and Mike Van Weir's screenplay makes numerous alternations. When I watched Nanny Sydney Elsbert, the young woman fresh out of high school who dreams of going to school for marine biology, but is committed to being her 6-year-old sister Lilo, guardian in the wake of her parents' death. Lilo and Lilo's newly adopted pet Stitch, a blue collar-like aliens experiment from the planet Joro, masquerading as a dog in direct. Everything about the girl's caring gesture and expressions tell me I should be rooting for this family of to become a family of 3. And yet, the CGI Stitch does not meet seamlessly enough with his very real surroundings when Nanny or Lilo reach out to hug or pet him. It's clear that they are touching something that is not actually there. ʻOhana means family, maybe a pure and heartfelt message, but it's sandwiched inside a project that largely fails to pass for anything but cheap. It's rather disappointing that as charm as Lilo Stitches, it lacks the imagination of the original film, especially considering that the remake is directed by Dean Fleischer Camp, the creator of the Marcel Dashal, which shows on shots and directors a subsequent feature film of the same name. That is such a clever and creative melding of live actor and sex with animated character. That's not to say that his Lilo and Stitch is not still constantly engaging. Now that does not have enough material to appeal to both children, who will certainly geeks at the lapstick antics of Stitch and relate to Lilo's status as an outcast. Among us her peer and adults, this film skews more heavily toward Nanny and the adult responsibilities she is facing, despite almost being a kid herself. Making her film debut is utterly adorable, her sunny atheism, providing the perfect counterbalance to Agudong programmatic, which may be a skating point of for among some of the diversion from the original story are Tutu. Nanny and Lilo's older neighbors playing a characters original to this film, being the person who allows Lilo to adopt Stitch, an action in this film that the already strained Nanny is vehemently opposed to. Even after witnessing the lonely Lilo be shown the star Stitch crashing spaceship for a friend. Thus this slightly different, more grounded approach to Nanny somewhat detract from the narrative's overall sense of wisdom. Yes, but it also fleshes out of sisters' relationship in meaning, full ways without losing sight of the fact that this Nanny still, above all else, want to do what's best for Lilo. More egregious is that fact that Lilo and Stitch is certainly filmed in Hawaii, one of the most beautiful locations on the planet, and yet still looks so bland, despite some minimal effort to draw distinction between the island native inhabitants and the natural landscape and the tourist inhabited resort and hotspot that pop up along the beach. An amusing moment at the start of the film finds Lilo snaking into one of the resorts to use their pool, while she and Stitch later wreak havoc at one of the resort lodges. The overly cartoonish alien's character always feels like they just walked in from an entirely different movie. The initial transition from space to under the sea included jarring. Lilo and Stitch might miss some comedy points by having the alien, Dr. Jumba Zack, and Agent Blakely take human from when they arrive on Earth to hunt down Stitch for the Grand Councilwoman, voiced by Hannah, as opposed to donning absurd disgust. But that change effectively serves the live-action format better, while still allowing for some old solid fish out of water humor and physical comedy. Some of that expanded plot that's typical of this Disney's remake it clunker. However, like the set rating of Cobra Bubbles, who in the animated movie is outwardly Nanny and Lilo's social worker. At least in all the original films are largely unimpressive and actually rather sweet, like the casting out of Carrier and Jason's shortly Nanny's friend David in the original movie in small role. Chris Sanders, the voice of Stitch, as well as writer and director of the original film, returning to voice Stitch again, employing the same Elvis Presley soundtrack and the use of the school's children's cross, who performed rollcaster right for the original film on both a new track and a New Year session of that former song for this movie. And the film itself is sweet too, despite some missteps. A serviceable family entertainment whose heart is in the right place. Or maybe it is not. These films are largely made to make a buck of brand familiarity. Not for any artistic merit. Alter Lilo and Stitch is not nearly as morally bankrupt as many of its contemporaries. Even Lil Bow as of 2021, was trying to mount a direct sequel to like Mike Vidal film's original writer. When you live in societal government by capitalism, nothing is scared. Our 2 decades distance is initial release. G.N.T.L. Viewers and Chris Sander, Lilo and Stitch 2002, has rightfully earned its place as one of the most beloved Disney's animated movie to come after the studio's 90s renaissance. In the term since 2002, the character of Stitch has also become one of the studio's most iconic and lucrative mascot outside of the mouse himself, spawning their 2 DVD sequel and animated series had a strong presence Disney's merchandising empire. Mind you, this massive property was born from the single original film 23 years ago, which was the only time Stitch graced theater screen until now. Taking into account Stitch's universal appeal and notoriety, a live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch feels like an inevitability designed for success. However, due to the financial and critical failure of Snow White 2025, which has reportedly led to what Disney's studios putting up its own live-action remake, including a previously planned Tangle reimagining that was to be directed Michael Gracie Batterman, burdened with a large responsibility. Not only does it have to be enough of a mainstream hit, but it also has to win back goodwill from the Disney's audiences who have seen lost faith in the company's live-action remake strategy. Experiment 626 crash lands in Hawaii, and in an attempt to hide from his mad scientist alien creator, Dr. Jumba Jokia Zack and Yuji Agent Blakely, he pretends to be a dog and wins over the heart of a little girl named Lilo Palke. After adopting him as her new pet, Stitch must face Lilo's older sister, Nanny, and learn the true meaning of family, or as it is known in Hawaii, ʻOhana. Lilo and Stitch 2002 is just as relevant with audiences today because it does not shy away from openly tackling complex subjects with sensitivity and care, more so than how other children's movies did in the early 2000s. Lilo and Nanny are grieving the loss of their parents, failing to meet the needs of children's protective services, and desperately searching for stability. Fans will be glad that this aspect of the story is still intact. At times, the remake succeeds at delivering a satisfying amount of character, depth, and pathos because of this timeless narrative. Yet, this all comes out a huge price. No matter how well intentioned it may be, the original animated film's charm and personality are ultimately lost. While Stitch himself has translated well into a CG animated character, the cinematography of this Disney's live-action remake is very forgettable and pedestrian when held up to the original animated movie, which boasts a beautiful watercolor aesthetic that serves as a love letter to its Hawaiian setting. There is absolutely no competition. There is almost no visual identity here. Every scene is shot in broad daylight. Compositions are haphazard but put together, and despite some decent productions design 2025's Lilo and Stitch feels strangely cheap whenever aliens' characters are not on screen. Perhaps this is a result of the movie originally being produced for a direct co-streaming Disney Plus release. Or maybe this just speaks to the studio's increasingly lazy production quality. Zuma and Blakely notably stick out as characters whose shared charm has been sucked dry. In the original Lilo and Stitch, the Jew disguise themselves as humans among the public by wearing unconvincing outfits to hide their alien feature. In the new movie, They simply have a device that clogs them as humans via cloning. Billy Roadhouse does his best to play bleakly with a hilariously styled and queer vibe, but Zack gives the film's worst performance due to a supreme lack of effort. Alien from or not offers nothing to his Jumba. This is especially disappointing as Jumba takes the main antagonist role in his remake away from an absent Gantu. Another character that is unfortunately mindcast is Nani, played by Sydney. Even if you discredit the colorism, controversy, and speculation, and the actress's lighter skin tone was stand during the production, she falls short at portraying Nani with the needed nuance and intellectual maturity that the role requires. Nani's adolescence is highly emphasized in the remake, especially when interacting with social worker Mrs. Kako, played by Nani's original voice actor. Despite his effort to grow on the character, focus too much on the chaotic side of Nani and not enough on her warmth. In contrast, newcomer Maia impresses with her ability to portray Lilo's messier side. We get to see this early on in this film, when she shows her belly at a hula dance practical and is shown making a ruckus around the beach resort. There are admittedly times when performance feels inconsistent, but they can be linked back to the movie's overall direction. While director Dean Fleischer Camp varies plenty of heart on his sleeves, Lilo and Stitch 2025 is not a good showcase of how his talent translates into big budget studio filmmaking. If it did not already going in, there is nothing to indicate that this live action reimagining comes from the director behind Marcel Duchamp. Outside of decentering the aliens element of the story, the changes in Lilo and Stitch 2025 are for the most part less irritating and unnecessary than other Disney's remake. Major changes in the third act gives Nanny motivation and depth outside of caring for her little sister, which builds up to something heartfelt and emotionally true. The great Amy Hill plays a brand new character, the sister's neighbor Tutu, whose spotlight culminates in a genuine reflection of humanity that aligns with the story's familiar themes. As sweet as these moments are, they are hardly crucial or justify remaking this tale into live action. As messy as Snow White was, it at least had a vision unique from its source material. Lilo and Stitch 2025 is a safe, disposable charm at the movies that barely does right by the original film. If the 2002 animated classic is fresh in your memory, it's going to be easy to pick apart at it seems. I wish there was far more care about into the last of remake, as there was animating Stitch with photorealism, and then the weirdness and punk attitude of the original movie were better preserved. Many other critics have praised this as one of the best Disney live-action remakes. If that is true, then it's purely to be default rather than any clear vision or metric of quality. Alright, I am not going to lie. I am very biased when it comes to Disney live-action remake. So to say that I was excited for this one is honestly pretty big in my opinion. The original Lilo and Stitch 2002 is a favorite in our household. So my daughter and I took her very first trip to the theater for the new live-action remake. She for the most part stayed entertained most of the movie. However, there was a longer stretch in the beginning where he does not see Stitch at all that she definitely lost interest. She is too. After all, for me specifically, there were a lot of new things to love, but also a lot of changes that I did not necessarily like that straight from the original. Detail all of that the more below. So I will go over acting first since that will be easiest to cover as opposed to the different from the original. My favorite character in the whole movie. Besides Stitch because came on was flaky Billy. Billy Mack did a phenomenal job at Blakey in the original. Blakely was one of those characters for me who was just there. In the live-action remake, Blakely was hilarious, goofy, and made you want to love him weird and awkward. Definitely my favorite of all the actresses, Sydney, who plays Nanny, was okay, but I honestly felt like she missed a lot of opportunities to really shine in some of the emotional scenes, as Lilo was straight up adorable. But for some reasons, and this is not the true fault, a lot of Lilo's original weirdness was not in the live action. She is more of just a lonely girl in the live action as opposed to someone who is stunned by her peer because of her differences. Those was the only actresses that stood out in my opinion. No one else really shined through as a memorable character. Okay, since I am getting into the plot, I have to get into differences here. I am going to be a spoiler free version first and then warn you guys before I go into my any spoiler. With the plot, a huge difference is that Guancho is not even included in the new live action remake. This shows Jomba into the role in the main villain, which made no sense to me. You basically have this whole entire universe built around Lilo Stitch and the friends they have made along the way along with the other experiment. Jumba in this universe was only a semi-villain who actually turned into family. In this live action, he legit in the main antagonist and I am not here for it. Did not consider this is a spoiler because you find out pretty earlier on that he is expected to be the main villain here. But seriously guys, what the actual heck? Why could not just bring in the Gantu? Another big divisions from the quiet about Nanny and Lilo's neighbor. Basically David and his grandmother, Lilo while Nanny tries to judge it all. Not only that, but the ending changes considerably with the addition of this neighbor. Also, we get an extra social worker besides Cobra Bubbles, and her name is just made my head spin and was not a good addition. Also another rant while the CGI designs for all of our aliens friends. We really care the action of our actresses often pulled me out of the movies because they looked so goofy trying to touch the CGI character. For example, there are a lot of times when Nanny pets Stitch and it makes it so easy to tell that she is not touching anything at all. It just pulled me out of the movie because it looked so bad at times. Nanny wanting to go to the college and having a full ride, Legally being this goofy and lovable character. Anything that came out of Stitch's mouth or honestly any of his action. I love that Plicky and Jumba had human forms of a good bite of the movie. I think it made the live actions more believable as a whole. There is more bonding between Lilo and Stitch. There is even a cute little scene where Lilo kisses Stitch's nose and my teddy bear. Just turn to me and kiss my nose. So I really like that part. Jumba being our main villain. I am still so mad about this. ʻOhana means family. Family means no one gets left behind as a villain. Nanny actually ends up going to college. I will have to explain why I did not like this in a paragraph. There were so many emotional scenes that the movie felt overstretched. Lilo still almost drowned. Lilo still almost gets taken away from Nanny's Jumba ship, crashes into the ocean with Stitch and Lilo, and the Stitch almost drowned. While I did like the symbolic gesture of having Stitch sacrifice himself, I felt like there was too many moments trying to pull at your heartstring, and it took away from the light-hearted, comical original movie. that made it so special in the first place. Alright, just to explain why I did not like Nanny going off to college. I think giving her a black backstory and hopes and dream was awesome. I think she more than any of the other character deserved to have more of a story to her just because of how awesome she is in general. She gave up everything to take care of Lilo and make sure that Lilo could grow up with a loving family, even their parents dead. Letting Nanny love everything college, Lilo their house. It just made what Nanny gives up in this movie seem travels because she did not end up having to give up anything, not to mention. I am seriously not into the endings that are let's let everyone be happy and get everything that want. It's just unsatisfying and extremely unrealistic. Overall, my dear definitely enjoyed this movie. May you ask? I will stick with the original. While I think there were nothing to love about this new live action remake, is it not Joe? Anything to improve upon the original, which of course take me back to my original stance for remake. Leave the originals along and come up with new stories. Alright, I am not going to lie. I am very based when it comes to Disney live action remakes. So to say that I was excited for this one of honestly pretty big in my opinion. For Disney, it was a step away from its usual style. It took a sci-fi alien story and transported it to modern, where it explored the everyday struggle of the people who lived there. With hand-drawn to the animation in the distinctive style of Chris Sanders, who last year directed the Oscar-nominated film. With a handwritten to the animation in the distinctive style of Chris Sanders, who last year directed the Oscar-nominated film Devil Robot. It had a fresh look that was new for the studio, including round faces and larger bodies. It was also one of the first mainstream film to platform and celebrate Hawaiian culture, putting locals at the forefront rather than using the archipelago as a cheap backdrop. And critically, it subtly criticized the ways in which mass over terrorism has affected native Hawaiians. A live-action remake set in our time was a chance to take the elements that made the original so groundbreaking and add layer of modernity to them. Maybe Lilo and Nanny are surrounded by airburns now, or perhaps Stitch can attempt his dreams of destroying a large city. Given how built up modern could plainly do a drag rendition of Chapel Roan song. Is the latest release to follow the apparent new recipe for a modern kids movie. Synthesize everything that could possibly offend anyone. Replace the personalized hand-drawn animation with expensive photorealistic CGI, add in little slapstick, and a Bruno Mars sang that you have got yourself a hit. Both films follow the same initial plot. Nanny has been her sister Lilo's guardian since their parents died, but is struggling with the responsibilities repeated visit from a social worker are not going well, and separation seems imminent. Meanwhile, far from Earth Experiment 626, who was made in the lab by Jumba, the mad scientist evil genius has escaped. He soon lands on his sister's Hivalian island, and Jumba is asked with recapturing his monster. Added by Plickly, a self-proclaimed art expert. When Lilo adopts Experiment C26 and names him Stitch, the real mayhem begins. We first met Nanny and Lilo in 2002, trying their best on their island home, overrun by an invasive species, tourist and then also alien. We also see Nanny and Lilo's rundown house, and how Nanny's only employment option are in the service and tourism industry. I just love to answer phones, she tells the hotel manager. Blakely soaks in a lavish hotel, bubble bath overlooking the ocean, while Lilo frequently enjoys the bedside hot tub, with Alisor's portrayal closer to advertisement than critic. While culture is still respected, after the backlash against the ending of Lilo and Stitch 2025, one side is coming to this film defense. Disney's latest live-action remake follow Lilo, Nanny and Stitch, Sander. As a face-off against the mad scientist John Balzac, it was released on May 2023 and quickly earned over $1 billion at the box office. Yet despite its initial success, it is somewhat controversial. Yet despite its initial success, it is somewhat controversial given Lilo and Stitch's divisive ending. While the animated classic saw Minnie retaining custody over Lilo, the remake has Nanny giving up custody completely. Lilo is sent to duty to Amy, while Nanny studies marine biology in California. The decision sparked considerable backlash as it seemingly ignored the ʻOhana message. I understand the backlash. She defended the movie's change while speaking with Forbes, emphasizing that change is scary. Explained that these narrative decisions were made in an effort to prove that Nanny could have a life of her own outside of being forced to parent Lilo. Check out her comments below. I felt like I understand where Nanny's heart was. I understand sacrifices that way. And I wanted to pay homage and tribute to those types of people who were in my life. Being an older sister and seeing that, I almost felt like I wanted to do this as a love letter to my sister. Family is a huge thing. It's really tough to understand something where you are outside and vice versa. It's constantly changing. What is tough is that there are not a lot of people who get the opportunity to leave the island. I totally understand Lilo and Nanny had a very fortunate series of events and a very end. Does that always happen? No, but at the same time, I think it's extremely important to see how they made it through all these sacrifices. They created their own family within all of his broken mess after losing their parents, thinking that everything is over and that Nanny never had a future. Yes, it means nobody cares forgotten or left behind, and that's still true to this day. That also means blood or not. We have got your back. That's the point, that's what you get, alright. Your family is what you make of it, and they will be there for you, blood or not. The community is your family. The changes did not necessarily make Nanny a weaker character, but it did significantly shift her narrative goals. While the original movie saw Nanny as a frustrated older sister, the remake gave her goals of her own. Nanny is no longer setting aside her own interests for Lilo's sake, but she is instead able to explore her personal dream. The idea reportedly came from Sander, according to director Dean Fleischer Camp, who argued that neighbors, church group, aunties and uncles, all these people would step in to help support his sister. The shift was largely to showcase the communal nature of life in Hawaii, as ʻOhana would not simply be restricted to Nanny's blood relative, by allowing Nanny to leave home to pursue her dream. The movie leaves Lilo in a stable home, while also letting Nanny prove that everyone has a right to follow their interests. She no longer needs to put her life on hold until Lilo is older, which could help fight the resentment that Nanny felt early in the original movie. Every live-action remake is left in the unbelievable position of being forced to make some changes to the source material. These can be minor movies made to make the characters more expensive in a live-action environment, but it could also be a great narrative shift, given that these movies are classic. Any changes of all inevitably enlarge same viewer. Anyone hoping to see a live-action reimagining of the exact same script will be disappointed, but the ʻOhana changes were an unforced error. Nanny's story was tragic, but her love for Lilo resonated through the decades. And remake is losing something by having her simply leave Lilo behind. Even if Nanny and Lilo are still in regular contact, it means leaving her sister to move in order to California to pursue a program that is ready offered in Hawaii. Lilo and Stitch Nanny story simply feels like abandonment rather than a self-actualizing opportunity. The Nanny changes are certainly defensible, but they are not necessarily the correct of decision. 2025 Lilo and Stitch has proven to be a major hit, generating huge anticipation for its follow-up. So here is everything we know about the sequel, Lilo and Stitch 2, the 2025 movie, which was directed by Dean Fleischer Camp, was a live-action remake of Disney's 2002 animated movie for the same name, which spanned major multimedia franchise. Lilo and Stitch reviews were strong from both critics and audiences. In addition to the earning a fresh score of 71% from 205 different critics, reviews on the aggregator website Rotten Tomato, the 2025 movie earned a verified hot audience score of 93% from 10,000 verified ratings, which gave it an average score of 4.6 out of 5 on the Repcore meter. The Lilo and Stitch box office has also performed extraordinarily well. It has considerably exceeded a reported budget of $100 million, having grossed $15.7 million worldwide as of the time of writing. This makes it the sixth highest grossing Disney live-action remake of all time, proving how eager audiences have been for more Stitch in theater. Ahead of the official confirmation of Lilo and Stitch 2, there had already been a considerable amount of character about the follow-up to the live-action Lilo and Stitch. In fact, Disney's entertainment co-chairman Alan Bergman told the Wall Street Journal that is the kind of property that lends itself to more. As early as May 23, which was the date to move debuted, producers Jonathan expressed similar sentiment while speaking with the Independent that same day. It is comment below. I think it's such a rich world that original co-director Chris Sander and others have built out, which is exciting. You have got the space opera element, which is so fun. We sort of start the movie in that but you have other characters we do a quick little nod to Angel and Leori in the movie that fans might catch when Jumba is scrolling through the other experiment. This 2022 animated film about a little and I who befriends on aliens who looks like a blue cola was written and directed by Chris Sanders and Jean Delvaux, who would go on to create another heartwarming animated film about a human and a fantastic creature. How to Train Your Dragon both have live actions adaptations here and 2025. Lilo and Stitch, while not quite justifying yet another IP expansion, maintain the sincere, engaging performances, beautiful settings, comedy, exhilarating surfing scene, and touching examples of ʻOhana, which means family including found family. The original most ardent fans will also appreciate appearances from members of its cast, including Carrier, the original Nanny Lilo's big sister, Jason Scott Lee, the original David, Nanny's friend, and Amy Hill excellent as a kind neighbor named Tutu, following her role in the original as an absent-minded shop. Sanders returned as well, once again voicing the reminiscent alien Lilo named Stitch. Unlike 2002 version, this one has a soundtrack featuring classic songs by Elvis Presley. On a planet far, far away, a multi-eyed scientist named Jumba, Zack has created a creature he calls 626, designed to destroy the planet's leader. Continuing the plummy accent of the original Zooey, orders that the dangerous mutant be destroyed. When it escapes Harry for Art, she says Jumba and her plans art expert, Sakini, one-eyed Blackley, Sweetie, and Billy to get him back once he art. They conveniently discuss themselves as human who looked like Gallifreys and Magnesium. By the that time, 626 has been captured by dog catchers and has broken out of his cage in the pond. He sees a process promoting rescue adoptions and make himself look a little more dog-like by absorbing his second set of arms, the spikes on his spine, and his antennas. 6 years old Lilo is mourning the loss of her parents, bullied by girls in her Kyolo dance class, and somehow never quite fits in at the dog pound. She falls instantly in love with 626 when he copies the dog in this poster and gives her a kiss. She brings him home and names him Stitch. The film wisely gives more attention to Nanny than the 2002 version. She is played with words and warmth by Sydney Elsbert and Jong. Nanny is more than a worried but devoted caretaker. She has her own dreams and conflict. A welcome addition is Kilo Suto as the open-hearted grandmother of Nanny's fastic, twirling friend and possible romantic interest. David Capo Courtney B. Vance plays Cobra Bubbles, an aliens investigating federal agent with a gold earring. Audiences have speculated since 2002 about whether Lilo is on the autism spectrum because he seems to have trouble recognizing social cues and has some possibly obsessive odd belief like a fish that controls the weather. Whether she is or not, one key element of both films whether she is or not, one key element of both films is how caring for someone else helps Lilo face less sharply the loss of her parents and gain perspective on the responsibility her teenage sister struggles with in trying to prove to social worker that she can take care of Lilo Stitch. Two moves from a Joe's engine who identifies with a movie monster to someone who wants to love and be loved to be part of ʻOhana. Children new to the story will enjoy some gross-out humor, slapsticks, nonsense, and the receding theme that families of all kinds, including those all Jews, can be devoted to the idea of ʻOhana. Director Dean Fleischer Camp brings a light touch and a tender-hearted sensibility of his Marcel. He is careful about preserving the most beloved detail of the original but making it more inclusive. My first choice would be a new story with characters we have not seen before. My second choice would be reimagining an earlier work where too many miss that last part. But my third choice would be a nice, pleasantly sweet movie that pays tribute to the fans of the original with a new few thoughtful expansions, and that is just what this is. This year Disney may have gone too far, turning perhaps its single greatest animated film into a heavily CG augmented, crazy live-action monstrosity. No, not the infamous box office bomb Snow White. The animated basis for that movie's monumental achievement in a medium, but it's ultimately a famous version of its timeless fairy tale that seems fair game for reinterpretation. Lilo and Stitch, however, is a rare sui generis species of Disney's animation, one that somehow emerged during a time for the animation studio to become a substantial hit back in 2002. The film has endured because it's a triumph of mixing techniques, old-fashioned, ultra-expressive hand-drawn animation and watercolor background, dashes of newfangled computer animation to assist with some of its sci-fi heavier scenes, and a story about a standard alien befriending a misfit little girl they cross ET with Looney Tunes and Curry. The story is still there in the new Storta, a live-action reimagining of Lilo and Stitch. The story is almost always still there in Disney's series of self-remake, especially when it comes to their more modern classic. Say what you will about that recent show White, but it's not a subsequent recreation. Plenty of dialogue is retained too, and the movie does a fine job of transferring Stitch into a 3D live action environment, not mimicking, along with a near perfect cartoon design. The fuzzy blue creature, his moped, witty mouth, and his alien bunny ear intact, still indoors, kids will love him as ever. The movie around him, however, is ghastly. It's not just that Lilo, a 6-year-old Hawaiian girl living with her older sister Nanny, loses the carefully detailed and collaborative performance given by animator and her original voiceover in favor of kid actor mugging and cutesy wisecrack. That's narrator Kealoha fault, of course, and possibly unavoidable in making a live action version at all. But for once, director Dean Fleischer Camp does not give either the poor human or special effect character any kind of visible technical support in their impossible task. That's evident right away in an opening sequences that serves as a model for how to lose the rhythm of a film even while following its blueprint early, line for line. The scene where alien and scientist Jumba is brought before Galactic Council to answer for his creation of Experiment 626, later named Stitch, character's co-creator Chris Sanders on every beat, speed running through the requests, expositions and Stitch's subsequent escape in a jumble of barely coherent cuts and stiffly rendered image of the earlier film's whimsical design. None of it really tracks unless you have already watched the cartoon. Camp's seemingly pancaked strategy never varies, even as the story shows them to examine the hectic lives of Lilo and Nanny, orphan sisters threatened with social services separations unless young adult Nanny can get and keep a better paying job. The arrival of Stitch, who Lilo mistakes for a dog and adopts, brings stores into their life, less havoc overall than this movie brings to its source material. Disney has allowed, maybe even encouraged, its filmmakers to take a work known of its idiosyncratic beauty and humor and cut into a hash of coverage, where since the reaction shots are prioritized over the sense beauty of Hawaii or how its reasons might move through this world. When Jumba and his native fellow alien, Bleakly Billy, take human form to pursue stage on art and also to save further on already cut rate, looking visual effect, the movie can't even be bettered to frame their funny walks clearly, even more than some green screen disaster. The actors feels as if they are performing into a void. As Stitch grows into his broken family, the movie manages a few affecting and funny moments, but as it deserves credit for recreating them all from earlier movie, almost always making them a little bit worse in the process, with a running time expanded by more than 20 minutes. As these things so often are, these should at least be room for a substantial round of brand new Stitch antics, yet the bits and pieces of new material barely seem to understand Stitch's initially malevolent personality, recording him as the untrained party animal he is pretending to be. Although there is hardly a single smile in Lilo Stitch 25 not generated through the solemn valor of the earlier screenplay, and hardly a poignant moment that's not more admirably raw in the G-rated version. That original film gave both Lilo and Nanny some real anger and pain beneath their satire, with Stitch as a rampaging knight not quite large enough to conquer the world. Camp's remake wants to manage that pain more territorially and gives Nanny in particular a more correct, entirely uninteresting ending that doesn't do. Film can stand comfortably alongside superficially similar but tonally distinct children's stories like E.T., The Iron Giant and My Neighbor No, however, Lilo and Stitch stepped forward from that crowd of modern classic as the only one whose keepers did not bother to protect it from a cheap branded knockoff. I remember going to see Lilo and Stitch when it was first released in theaters quite wildly. In fact, I was 11 years old. It was summer break. June 2002, just outside of Atlanta, and likely hot as hats. My mom, my brother, and I joined up with one of my friends, her younger siblings, and her mom to go watch the newest animated Disney joint at the local theater. Although I wasn't especially thrilled, as this one wasn't about princess and therefore not relevant to my interest. But I recall enjoying the film quite a bit more than I anticipated. I also remembered being surprised by Like Mike, which you may recall is the movie string appear rapidly wow as a drawn on his lucky kid who inherit magic basketball talent after finding an old pair of Michael's Jordan sneaker. My friend's mom snuck his alt into the atheism, screening that one immediately after Lilo and Stitch ended, which is possibly the most criminal act I have ever engaged in my life. At least skew more heavily toward Nanny and the adult responsibilities she is facing, despite almost being a kid herself.